More breaking news as Louisiana State Police investigate the death of a man who died today after being taken into custody by Houma police. Troopers say an initial investigation shows that a Houma police officer pulled over a vehicle early this morning for an equipment violation near Tunnel Boulevard, and the driver tried to run away. The officer used his taser on the man, took him into custody, and put him in a patrol unit. Investigators say Houma police officers saw the suspect try to conceal bags of suspected narcotics in his mouth and removed him from the patrol unit. They say officers began life-saving efforts after the man became unresponsive, but he later died at a hospital. State police now ask for any potential witnesses to contact them.